Okay, so Portman Partners, you have fairly recently invested in Flint DC. I think they're a rapid hire recruitment service. I guess it'd just be good to understand the background. How did the investment come about?
Well, first of all, thanks for your time today, Phil. Yeah, I mean, I think Portman has been chugging along really successfully, focusing on sort of that leadership level exec recruitment piece, retained only search. And it's a really strong brand. And a lot of our clients were coming to us asking us a very similar question. Can you help us with the sort of next level of talent? And that type of recruitment requires a slightly different model. So it didn't really fit in with the Portman business model and our delivery model. So we kept on saying no to our clients, which was quite difficult, obviously, from a relationship perspective. But then what we were finding is after a couple of months, they were coming back to us, and yes, they had hired people and they had people in the role, but they really were complaining about the process and how difficult it was to work with general recruitment versus retained search, and asking us, would you mind, we're desperate, to have this sort of these rapid roles filled quite quickly. So we went away and had a bit of a think, and Paul obviously has 25 years in recruitment and seen and done it all, and had contractor desks and perm desks and worked in finance and HR and all sorts of different types of recruitment. And we thought, well, we can't really work that into the Portman model. So why don't we have a look at a sort of a new sort of rapid hire business that sort of addresses this next level of talent, but also sort of challenge the status quo of rough and ready recruitment and come up with something a little bit unique. After some time, we formulated a delivery model called Contingent plus recruitment, which effectively is that sort of search methodology. So headhunting, exclusive relationships with our clients, but on a success-based fee. And that is really as a response to what our clients have been asking us for and what they're looking for. And as you know, I mean, you do enough interviews to understand the state of the market, the rapid increase in data center construction, both in the UK and broader in Europe and then globally. You've heard me talk around the sort of talent deficit and the aging workforce. All of those things kind of align to the fact that we need to be a bit more proactive and have a bit more of a open approach to how we fill these roles. That's the background on why Flint DC. I mean, it's not because we didn't have enough work to do. It's just because we see we see a different opportunity with a different delivery model, which is basically answering a ongoing request from our clients, essentially.
Okay, so I mean, is it too sort of harsh to say that the sort of traditional current model is broken, or is it just that it doesn't work for the specifics of the data center, and this contingent plus is therefore being created, or just I suppose, yeah, contrast the sort of traditional with this new approach.
I don't think the whole recruitment industry is broken. There's great recruiters and there's great businesses within the sector. Not many of them focus purely on data centers. So that's one of the USPs that's always been Portman, is that we focus specifically on data center, and Flint is the same. It's data center, bricks and mortar data center. So as a whole, I think the recruitment industry isn't broken, but the model when it comes to a aging scarcity of workforce in the data center sector specifically, it's a challenge. So we've got to employ from parallel sectors, and having a real in-depth understanding of the sector, I think, is really important. So there's pieces of it that have been broken for a long time, and there's a lot of new entrants to the market, both the data center market and the recruitment market, because they see the opportunity. So as a whole, it's not broken, but I think we're absolutely there focusing on our niche, which is data center and our clients. So we're not looking to take over the world in respect to recruitment. We are still focused on data center and working with exclusive partners on an exclusive basis, just
Yeah,
delivering a different model.
I think also just add on to that, Mike. I think our USP as well, having come from contingent recruitment, which I did for many, many years, as discussed, and obviously been in executive search now for 15 years. What I think our main USP with Flint is that we use the contingent and also headhunting model. We do not advertise, we only headhunt. So essentially, when a client engages with Flint, we do ask them to retain us for a 2-week period, to give us a 2-week period exclusivity, but they do not have to pay a retainer. But in terms of our methodology, in terms of how we deliver the roles, we purely use our executive search methodology and headhunt only. And where we leverage and get most of our clients and candidates from is often from referrals, because of course we've been working at the senior level, C-suite and slightly below. We have a very, very good warm black book, if you like, of candidates we can go to. And more often than not, and this is coming back to, is the contingent recruitment model broken? It's definitely not. Brilliant recruiters out there, but often when we are engaged by our clients and we pick up roles, they generally tried. You know, the talent acquisition teams have tried and they've failed. They're either too inundated, or they're tricky geographical areas, for example, Frankfurt. And so what we do, we have a dedicated delivery team that will solely work on a executive search methodology to deliver these roles. And we find it successful.
And I'm just wondering as well, in terms of what it is you're doing, are you accessing sort of fresh talent? Because obviously, as Mike's alluded to, and I think we all know the data center industry is somewhat challenged when it comes to the numbers and the experience. So are you, to a certain extent, accessing fresh talent, or are you accessing existing talent and pointing it in different directions? I suppose is what I'm saying. Are you creating new people, bring new blood in, or just moving, I say the inverted commas, just moving it around from company A to company B? I suppose is just of interest.
So yeah, for our philosophy, both with Portman and with Flint, is to always introduce new talent. We can't just move pieces around the board and expect that to solve our challenge moving forward. So Portman's philosophy has always been, let's look at parallel sectors, let's introduce new talent. But it's always been a challenge because there's a serious change of mind shift we need from a hiring perspective. And we've seen talent introduced from parallel sectors be hugely successful, even at the leadership level. So equally, Flint's philosophy here is we don't have enough people in the data center sector. They're not hiding behind a rock or a PDU or a generator. They're not there. So we have to look outside the sector, and we have to educate our clients, and we have to bring them along this journey with us to show people that there are cross-transferable skills and cross-transferable talent. There are a great bunch of innovative folk out there with cognitive diversity of thought that can actually add real value. So it's less about what our choice is. It's the fact that we're forced to do that. So every search, every recruitment, every assignment we get, we cast a very wide net initially. And it is an education piece, and it's about finding exceptional talent that don't have experience. So I think that's the fundamental difference here, is that there's a lot of people attracted to our sector, and we need to knock down the barriers to entry. So we're still seeing every job description asking for 5 or 10 years worth of data center experience. It's just not possible anymore. And if that's truly what you want, there's a premium on that. Anything from 10 to 30 to 50% on base compensation. So it's more expensive to hire people with experience. I think there are situations that call for that ultimately, but I think where there is some flexibility, that's where we're introducing new talent.
Yeah, and in terms of the actual Contingent Plus service, it'd just be good to understand, I suppose, how long that's been in existence and its sort of delivery success. How successful has it been to the point where obviously Portman have looked at it and thought that this is good to invest in.
To our knowledge, there's no other business delivering Contingent Plus in the data center sector. We've never come across it before. There are other firms out there on the global scale that deliver that success-based fee, but they use sort of, I say rough and ready, but traditional recruitment models where we're blending them quite uniquely. And it's just where organizations can't don't have the budget for retained search. They need roles filled more rapidly, where Contingent Plus works. I mean, I think what it is a partnership between Flint and our clients. Essentially, the traditional model is we've got a role, let's put it out to 3 or 4 agencies, and if there's this big bun fight, whoever delivers the CV quickest wins effectively. And we're saying that's great to a certain extent, but it doesn't necessarily get you the best talent. So what we're doing is we're using that search methodology, headhunting methodology, and what that requires is a partnership with our clients and a period of exclusivity, because we don't want to put in all the hard work for no reward. So we're kind of guaranteeing that we will find the right candidate for you, and instead of charging a retainer up front, we're doing it effectively free of charge until such time as we place a successful candidate. So I say there's less risk. I mean, I think there's pros and cons for retained search and for Contingent Plus, as we call it, and that clients will select one or the other. But I think bottom line is hiring managers, hiring businesses don't always have the luxury of being able to pay a retainer up front. We're certainly seeing the Portman business grow rapidly. There's obviously a lot of appetite for retained search, for stealth, where we go unadvertised, where it's direct approach. It's very sort of behind closed doors, and we're searching out sort of what we call passive high performers. So we're approaching people that are in a role doing exceptionally well. I think the Contingent Plus model with Flint blends those two things, where we're doing that, but we're also advertising. We're also doing sort of direct market approach, because of the rapid nature of it, and it's less stealthy. So it depends. It depends on what our clients want, and I think we're absolutely unique now as a group of businesses to understand what the client wants, and then put them into the Flint model or put them into the Portman model. I mean, just this morning, we had a client meeting, and we advised them that we think for their rapid hire requirements, 6 live roles, that Flint's is better suited to them for what they're looking for. We've also had instances where clients have approached us, and based upon the scarcity of the skill set and talent they're looking for, we've said that one sits better in the Portman business. So let's work through Portman and do a retained search on one role, and we do the others through Flint. So it gives us that flexibility. What you see is a lot of search businesses that have tried to go into generous recruitment and battled, and then you see a lot of recruitment businesses that have tried to go into exec search, and they failed because the two are extremely different. So we've taken a pragmatic approach as a leadership and gone, well, let's try and create both within a framework of a business that has the same management and leadership team, but is delivered completely differently. So people will recognize Paul as a partner on Portman, and he's been a partner there for 5 years on exec search. And Paul is now focused on the Flint business, moved into the managing director role. But it gives us the flexibility to give our clients the experience, the expertise, and the safe pair of hands in whichever business.
Yeah, I just used to get a little frustrated when, I delivered 4 or 5 roles on the exec search level with Portman for, one of our key clients. And then they'd go, oh, actually, we've got a few roles which are just under 100K. Could you do that? But we don't want to retain you because we don't generally retain companies under 100K salary. And we know, I know I could fill them. Simple as that, because I know the people. But because of the Portman model, it didn't quite give us that flexibility, and we also didn't want to dilute that brand. It's there is a nuance between what we do between Portman and Flint, and there is a clear definition between the two companies. But this really does fill the gap for our clients, and does allow us to be more flexible and to offer the high quality of search methodology, but under the Flint umbrella and roles under 100K. So it does make sense to us and our clients. So we've had a really positive response so far.
And for absolute clarity, if we could get every client, every assignment on a retained basis, we think it would be the best way to hire and onboard staff. Absolutely. The reality of the situation is that's not possible. So I go back to what I said in the beginning. Flint was born out of a demand from our clients and our partners, not because we wanted to do it differently. It's just that there is a requirement for it, and we were tired of saying no, and not being able to assist our clients, and now we have the ability to deliver across the board.
Okay, and maybe while I've got you both, and before we finish, it'd be good to just ask a little bit more generally. I know, Mike, we've chatted in the past, but in terms of the data center industry, there's this, I say everyone talks about this, but no one seems to be sort of panicking, breaking sweat just yet. But I mean, at what stage does what everyone acknowledges as a recruitment skills shortage become, something of a crisis? And data centers, I mean, I do work in the semiconductor industry, and fabs are being delayed construction because they haven't got enough people to work there. At what stage do data center projects get held back, not because there aren't enough skilled people to operate them, I suppose?
Well, it's not new. It's not new news, is it? I mean, let's
No.
go all the way back to Uptime's report in 2019 saying we were short a couple of 100,000 people. Over the last couple of years, I've seen more of a requirement for panel discussions and talent review, and the global positioning of the workforce at events. So I've had a number of speaking slots over the last couple of years at industry events. I've been, asked to do a lecture through the DCA at the University of East London. I was asked by John Booth to do a presentation on the workforce at the National Data Center Academy. I'm traveling out to South Africa next month to go and talk about talent for StepX in Pan-African data centers. I did a presentation at the 1010 at St. Paul's a couple of weeks ago, and the message is always the same. We've got an aging workforce. Average age of people in the data center sector at the moment is 53. The chasm between the number of people required versus the number of people we have is actually growing. If you look at Uptime's report from 2019, where they said we had 2 million, we'd need 2.3 million by 2025. We're in 2025 at the moment. And from my last research, that 2 million has dropped in numbers to around 1.9 million. So if we still needed 2.3, we would have a 400,000 deficit at the moment. But actually, if we look at the scope of the industry as a whole, the requirement's grown, and that's everything from land acquisition to construction, to your point, semiconductor, OEM manufacturing, the whole supply chain, that we think the deficit is closer to 700,000 before we take into account the grey tsunami. So is the void getting bigger? Yeah, absolutely. Do we have a solution for it? I don't think so. Right now, we need to train people. We need to approach it from many different angles. But ultimately, we're at the bottom of this hockey stick curve. And I think the industry is quite resilient, and we've been really successful because I don't think we felt the impact just yet. People are saying, the feedback I get is, well, we're still operating them. We're still building them. Do we really have a talent shortage? And I think we're at the bottom of that hockey stick curve. I research and some of the presentations I've been in saying, I'm rounding down here, but we've got 50 gig of power available in data center globally. That needs to go to 163, somewhere around there. That's a threefold increase. We're just getting by now, and projects are being delayed all the time. I was just on call this morning with a CX commissioning engineer. Their project is delayed because their main contractor is delayed, and it comes down to resource. It comes down to availability of hardware. So we're seeing it impacting on project builds at the moment. And I think I've always wondered if that's not one of the main reasons people have extended their lives in the sector is because we can't find talent. And secondly, are we going to start to see burnout now? Because everybody I talk to seems to be doing 2 or 3 people's jobs. So, I think well-being, people's mental health, and just people are getting burnt out, I think, fully in conversations I have. So a lot of people we speak to now, they're moving for culture. They're overworked, under a lot of pressure, and there's no plan on how they grow the workforce and how they grow efficiency. So, I think it's a real challenge, and we don't have a silver bullet. But I think we need to approach it from many different angles. And having an inside track and understanding the sector is particularly important for being able to figure out if somebody doesn't have experience in the skill set, or they have the skill set but they don't have the relevant experience. As recruiters that intimately understand the sector, we're able to then determine whether those people have all the other abilities to fit into the demands of the data center sector, I think.
Okay, I don't maybe Paul, your thoughts on, I mean, is it too important to leave up to individual companies to, come up with their own individual approaches to how they're going to find people, whether it's through yourselves or other ways, going back down to, education level stuff, or do governments, whether it's the UK one or, just governments generally need to say, this, obviously in the UK, we've called it critical national infrastructure now, data centers. So it's apparently quite important to us. So if it is, does the government need to say, this is how we're going to find the shortfall that Mike's alluded to, or
Yeah,
let the
yeah,
market sort it out?
exactly right. I think, as Mike said, there is no magic wand that is just gonna rectify this situation. But there is some incredibly low-hanging fruit that the industry can go at. I mean, as we all know, only 10% of the industry are female, and that is across the board. And that is a complete open goal, and that can be mended from the STEM academia, universities, colleges, diplomas, and you can really entice young girls in schools to educate them and start looking at courses within the data center industry. There aren't any specific data center degrees yet. I mean, you can do a degree on David Beckham or Taylor Swift if you want, but there isn't anything specific in the data center industry, which is amazing. I mean, obviously there is some great success going on with a lot of the key clients at the moment, be it Microsoft, Cyrus One. They're all bringing in kind of like what are they called? They're kind of like apprentice programs, if you like, that they can bring people in from colleges. And they are very, very successful. But I think the good news is that the industry is, even though it is a bit of a sleeping giant in regards to, there are a lot of younger people out there who still don't understand and know about the data center industry. And they don't appreciate just what a fantastic career move it could be for them in regards to career progression, education, and also salaries. Salaries are very good within the data center industry. So I think it is a bit of an open goal, really, combined with, obviously, as I mentioned before, the fact that only 10% of the working population in data centers are female. That is something that we are always looking to address.
Just to add, I think the siloed approach is helping short term, and it's helping those organizations that are proactive. But in a resource scarcity, what's going to happen is once you've trained them, educated them, if you don't have the right culture, they're going to get poached. So I don't think the silo approach is going to solve the challenges long term unless you tie people in somehow, which we're already seeing is not sustainable. So education is key. I mean, there is the master's program in data center, but that's at a real leadership level. That's the only degree qualification within data centers. But at an entry level, there's no apprenticeship program specifically for data center. And I think that this is something that the National Data Center Academy is trying to change, because there's electrical apprentices. There's 100 of different apprentices, but at the end of the day, they don't result in a job in the data center sector. So another reason Flint was born is that I do a lot of work with Adele D'Souza and the Rising Stars program, where we educate sixth form school leavers about the industry. And I always felt like after we had highlighted the sector to them, given them real interest, we kind of abandoned them. And I don't mean that from a personal mentorship perspective. I mean from, well, now they're interested and they want to get into the data center sector, but there's no one to help them because that's not particularly attractive for any recruitment business. So they don't have any experience in the work of, world of work or in the data center sector. So they get passed over very quickly by recruiters. Certainly for Portman, other than, a bit of mentorship, there wasn't much we could do for them beyond that. So I felt like we were abandoning them. And I think Flint now gives us a mechanism to actually help them come out of school and into early careers within the data center sector. And that's going to be by educating our clients once again, and that some school leavers have the ability. But also something I'm working with the NDCA on is trying to create a group apprentice scheme that focuses purely on the data center sector. So using the National Data Center Academy as a training facility, bringing in some really interesting, talented people from within the sector, and then actually working with some of these big global corporate businesses that have unfortunately don't have the ability to spend their apprenticeship levy, and they're handing it back to the government every month by way of tax. And actually that could be put to better use by educating and training people if we could get a group apprentice scheme together. So that's happening in the background. And it's something that Flint is very much involved in, because we feel once we've put them into the apprenticeship program, and it's a group apprenticeship program, and we've placed them temporarily at data centers gaining experience. At the end of a 3-year apprenticeship, we come out with some really qualified apprentices or post apprentices that have worked in a live data center industry, and then Flint gets an opportunity to place them. So we were thinking about doing a sort of 3-year apprenticeship program, group apprenticeship program, and getting some key sponsors in to help us deliver that. In the end, we'd have like an NFL draft type recruitment process at the end, have the highest scoring draft one pick, and let those businesses vie for onboarding the best talent. And if we did 30, 40, 50 students a year, I don't know, what we could get to. At the end of that, we're guaranteeing them a career in the data center. So I think that's one way of doing it. We've looked at armed forces that only addresses a small number of the workforce. We've looked at, parallel sectors, and you can see where it's going here. It's the combination of those that help us sort of bridge the talent gap to some degree. But I don't think it solves all the challenges. So we look, AI, we're using AI a lot more in our business. And I think that there will be, a lot of uses for AI in balancing out workforces internally. I've always said AI won't replace 100% of the people that work in the data center sector, but it will replace 100% of the people in the data center sector that don't get on board with AI. So we need to utilize those tools to help us become more efficient, enable us to do a little bit more with our hands and the physical human resource, which will, I think, bridge some of the gap. And then we need to have honestly, we need to have a change of mindset. I've said it a couple of times in my presentations of late that you are probably in a pretty good position if you hire somebody with zero industry experience and you put them through a CNET training course or a National Data Center Academy course, and you don't even put them in a data center for the first 6 months. Just pay for their training. Just let them shadow people on site, and you start doing that. After 6 months, you have people that are pretty up to speed with innovation, latest technology. They get qualifications that are funded by the business, and all of that will still cost you less than hiring somebody with the relevant experience. So it's a combination of all those sorts of things, and hence, the Portman Flint model works because it's a combination of different approaches.
Okay, and maybe finally, and I don't want to end on too gloomy a note, but just thoughts. I mean, theoretically, it's the lack of power availability that is everyone's panicking about. And I think the only thing that's saving us at the moment is that there is a gap, but it's because the data center capacity hasn't been built out yet. But as I understand it, when it does come online in sort of 3, 4 years' time, unless there's been some kind of miracle in the meantime, there isn't enough power. But can we now potentially add in this recruitment shortage that if it's not addressed, or is it already too late? I mean, will there be something of a hiatus, even, if everyone gets their act together as of today? Just, I suppose, compare and contrast, power, lack of power, lack of personnel, if you will.
At the International Finance Forum on Tuesday in London, Mark Ganzi spoke about power and people. So I dread to think if we solve the power challenge tomorrow, what we would do, because that would really highlight the shortfall in people. So I think that while we try and solve the power challenges we have, people can also help us solve those power challenges. We need some smart people to come in and figure out what's next from respect to power. And I know there's a whole lot of innovation coming our way, and people are adopting different methods for powering data centers. But as soon as we get the power, the competition for the people to build them is going to intensify. So you don't want to end on a gloomy note. I think that the sector is growing phenomenally. The investment is growing phenomenally. I think there's going to be some winners and losers from an investment perspective, from an operator perspective. And I think what's going to define the difference between the winners and the losers is the people. Yeah, we can't get away from it. I think technology is great. Power and innovation are great. AI is great. But at the end of the day, it's people who run these organizations, I think. So, choosing the best fit people for your organization, making sure, culture is there. I think culture, a statement that came out from this week was that culture eats strategy for breakfast, which is quite unique. I mean, I think you can have the best strategy in the world, but if you have the wrong culture and the wrong people, how do you deliver it? So, I mean,
yeah, and I think it's something you alluded to earlier, Philip, in regards to a lot of our companies we research. They basically are robbing Peter to pay Paul. So a lot of our clients will basically, AWS will take from Meta, Google will take from Meta, et cetera, et cetera. So there's not enough new blood coming in, and what that does is that ruins the culture of a company, because why are people leaving the businesses they're working for? Because they haven't got the culture right. Also, what that does is it basically bolsters the salaries, and it just makes it's just going to make it harder and harder to attract more senior people into the industry, because people won't be able to move any higher because the salaries are getting too bolstered and inflated. So yeah, I mean, with global electric consumption is due to double by 2030. And what with AI coming in as well, I mean, what we know is that this sector is here to stay. I think what AI has done in regards to promote itself with all its apps, I think they've been very, very clever. I think they've been very, very positive. The data center industry, I think, can learn from AI in terms of how they position themselves. I think the data center needs to be more of a kind of a good neighbor, if you like. They need to get more, continue the good messages out in regards to what they're doing, reversing fossil fuels, sustainability, using renewables and what have you. And that will help attract new talent into the industry. I also think our clients need to be braver and bring people in from aligned sectors, be it transport or utilities. I do feel that, again, use that phrase, robbing Peter to pay Paul. Too many of our clients are too conservative and too scared to take a calculated risk and trust Portman or Flint. Because essentially this is what we do day in, day out. We are just meeting and speaking with brilliant people. And we like to spend a lot of time with our clients to understand their culture, to understand why they've got to this situation in regards to why they're suddenly looking for people now. And then based on our knowledge, then we can find them the best fit. And not being wrong, yes, a lot of the candidates we find may only hit about 80% of the criteria on the job brief that we get. But the rest of the 20%, as long as the company has a very good culture and a good training and mentoring scheme, then this candidate will catch up very, very quickly. So I do believe that if there is a trust in a recruitment cycle, and companies partner with us, which they do with Portman, they retain us, and we have a very high success rate. In regards to Portman Partners and the executive search model, we have a 100% success rate on delivery. The only times we are not successful is when a client either cancels it or they change the brief. If we are also retained on the Flint side and companies trust us, then we will be equally as successful.
Okay, so maybe in some way it sounds like, I mean, the industry's always been quite conservative and maybe evolves, and maybe it's time to, abandon the evolution and go for more of a revolution? I mean, I think you said, Mike, technology-wise, they're looking at more sort of radical innovations to address the power thing, and maybe on the recruitment side, they need to think more, I don't know, left field, out of the box, whatever the expression is, to come up with the necessary personnel. Is that a fair summary?
Well, it's a very accurate summary, because I think that people that have grown up in the data center sector, which is the vast majority of us at the moment, are pretty risk adverse. And we know how we've done things always. So I think you have to challenge. If we want to innovate, and most innovation comes through challenging the status quo and the norm, I think. So I think that needs to we need to do that in respect to the people resource as well. Let's challenge what we've always done. And I think the more people we give an opportunity, the more we'd be surprised. I think that we can solve this challenge. I mean, and there's a lot of unemployment around the world. So are we able to outsource, and remote hire people for some jobs? I've talked to a lot of firms that have done that. They're looking at emerging markets and outsourcing design, or outsourcing CAD design, or whatever it is, to nations around the world, and they're finding it pretty easy to hire resource in that respect, and then focus on areas where they need hands-on resource. That's where they focus, and they outsource the rest of it to agencies, and they're successfully hiring from around the globe. Because I mean, we have a labor shortage in the UK, absolutely, and in Europe, absolutely. But we look at Africa, for instance, where global unemployment is in the 40% plus. In South Africa, I read an article this morning, 50% of graduates are unemployed. So those are degree qualified graduates that can't get a job. So tap into another market, look at visa sponsorship, all those sorts of things could potentially help change, help solve some of these challenges. But equally, we don't want to cause brain drains from other emerging markets. So let's utilize what we have. Let's be a bit more proactive and creative in how we recruit, and let's entice people into the sector. So humanize the data center sector, give it, change people's perception of it, make it an attractive career landing spot. It's been demonized for so long, but ultimately, let's find a way to healthily promote it and make it a destination sector.
Okay, well, both Mike and Paul, really appreciate the time you've given me. Some brilliant insights, obviously, into the new venture between yourselves, but also the state of the data center industry. Is always interesting to chat about that. So thanks very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Phil.
Thanks so much.